All right, it is 5:10. I just want to officially start the meeting. My name is Ayabami Bell-Torrance. I just thank you everyone for joining us tonight, taking time out of your day to find out the latest happenings with Ddot, and we look forward to hearing your comments and questions as well. I'm going to get started right away with our introductions, and I'm just going to go as I see everyone. So I see Chief Brown.
Good evening, everyone. Chief Ricky Brown, Transit Police.
Mr. Mallett.
Good evening, everyone. Andre Mallett, Operations.
Ms. Schofield.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. Gina Schofield, Scheduling and Service Development.
Mr. Luckett.
Good evening, everyone. Larry Luckett, Vehicle Maintenance.
Mr. Yamakura.
I am Ricky Yamakura. I'm the Manager of Data and Reporting.
Ms. Lukowski.
Hi, Kristen Lukowski, also a member of the marketing team.
Mr. Lozen.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Don Lozen from Compliance. I'm a Regulatory Compliance Officer for ADA.
Ms. Wimberly.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Zandra Wimberly. I'm an Assistant Director with Administration.
Ms. Taylor Hendricks.
Hi, everyone. Mickey Taylor Hendricks with Scheduling and Service Development.
Ms. Donahue.
Hi, everyone. Deanna Donahue, Grants and Planning Coordinator.
Ms. Yates. Let's go with Ms. Walsh.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Marianne Walsh. I'm the Interim Deputy Director for Administration at Ddot.
Okay, and Ms. Yates, go ahead. Okay, I think we're having technical issues.
Char Yates, I'm Marketing Manager.
And I want to acknowledge our interpreter tonight, Mr. John Harvey. Okay, I'm going to get into our rules for tonight, which are pretty simple. We just ask that you hold all your questions and comments to the end of our updates. You'll raise your hand, and if you need assistance, we'll explain that when we get to it as well. Once you do have that opportunity, we just ask for no personal attacks or no foul language. That will not be tolerated. And the same for the chat room, which will open during the public comment time. We do ask that you respect our time limit of 2 minutes. We will enforce that time. If there is time allowed, you will have another opportunity to talk tonight. So with that, I am going to start with our updates. And if you just give me one moment, please.
I think you might be muted.
I am, thank you. Okay. Our updates tonight are a little bit different. We just want to make sure that everyone is aware of the truth of what's happening and to just clear up some misconceptions. So I want to start with one of the myths that we've been hearing, that Ddot suspended fare collection to help residents who cannot afford to ride or lost their jobs due to the pandemic. The fact is that Ddot suspended fare collection last March to limit exposure between coach operators and riders in response to the growing COVID-19 pandemic. Safety measures such as masks, barriers, vaccines, and hand sanitizer machines made it possible to resume boarding from the front and collect fare. Another myth is Ddot is increasing fares. That is not true. No changes have been made to the fare structure. Ddot does not need to collect fares because of federal funding like the CARES Act. Again, that is a myth. Ddot cannot rely solely on federal funding. Fare collection is needed for the sustainability of our transit system. Federal funding for Ddot is being used to fill the overall city budget. That is not true. The fact is that the federal funding is being used to maintain operating assistance, preventive maintenance, surveillance and security, and metropolitan planning. Ddot is only operating at 50%. We definitely want to clear the air. Ddot service is currently operating at 78.5%. Ddot needs more buses to provide additional service. Another myth, Ddot has not made any service changes to address overcrowding concerns. The fact to those points is that Ddot provided weekend service during the week at the beginning of the pandemic as a result of a driver shortage and low ridership. Ddot is monitoring service via the supervision, transit police, dispatch, and the COVID-19 customer survey that was completed early on, excuse me. Ddot is adjusting service according to customer feedback, data analysis, and road supervision. So how are we using the CARES funding? Here's a breakdown, and for those who may be on the phone, 36 million has gone to operating assistance, 27 million preventive maintenance, 642,684 surveillance and security, 625,755 toward metropolitan planning. That's a total of $64,268,439. When it comes to the CRISA funding, the breakdown is operating payroll, sanitizing, cleaning, PPE, security, and other eligible operating costs. That's $20,246,036 that's gone toward operating assistance. And as you see, $204,505 towards security. That is clearing up, hopefully, some of the misconceptions and more of the reality of what Ddot is doing. We want to also acknowledge, if you have not seen our social media and our Facebook Live today, today is Transit Appreciation Day, and we celebrated our drivers as we do every day, but we did a little something extra special today. Today we celebrate Transit Driver Appreciation Day. We celebrate all of our hardworking operators who have bravely transported people throughout the city day after day during this pandemic. And it's not too late if you want to tag us and share some positive comments again regarding some of these hardworking drivers. We would love to hear some positive feedback about that. And that is all I have. And this is, again, DetroitMI.gov/Ddot. It has our latest information and our social media. With that, I do want to give opportunity to any of our colleagues to see if they have any additional updates tonight before we move to public comment.
Good evening.
Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, good evening again, Chief Brown, Transit Police. I just want to take this time to fortunately give my update, which is to thank from the bottom of my heart those passengers and citizens that have been cooperating with our mask mandate and now cooperating with the the fair reinstitution. Only together will we all get out of this pandemic together, safely and healthy. So I just want to thank those citizens and passengers that are really cooperating and helping us move along in a safe and more healthy manner.
Anyone else?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Andre Mallett from Operations, and just a quick update. And first, I also would like to acknowledge and thank any driver that may be on this in this meeting and forum, and appreciate all their hard work and efforts out there. I did realize that we do have some drivers that periodically sit in on some of the meetings, so thank you guys. And all of your efforts are greatly, greatly appreciated. Operations have just a couple notes. We do have a plan for a class of 8 new TEOs starting on April the 5th. So we'll be going through the training and onboarding process of getting them in our training in a few weeks. So that will greatly help us to increase our manpower to officially operate our schedule. And that's really exciting. So we're really excited about that. As Chief Brown mentioned, the relaunch of our fares have begun March the 15th with very few incidents. And we would like to thank the public and our operators as well for that combined effort as we endeavor through this process. It's been a great privilege to serve the public, and we would like to thank you guys for that easy relaunch. It's been an excellent relaunch so far, very minimal fare disputes, and we would like to just thank everyone for that. And that's pretty much all I have at this time.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we are going to open it to our public comment time. Again, a reminder of our 2-minute time limit. I will also open up the chat if there's any issues where you can place your comment or question there as well. So I'm going to turn over now to my colleague Kristen to call our first person.
Okay, great. The first hand up that I saw, where'd he go? First hand up is Mr. Verse. You can unmute yourself.
No, okay. I'm presuming you can hear me. Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, good. All right, I'm Larry Donald Burst with the Choice Futures Platform, Transit Justice Team, and a part of its Transit Walk Group. And I represent a significant number of riders as well as city, state, and federal taxpayers, of which I am one. And yes, we do appreciate drivers. I personally definitely appreciate them. And my first comment is, drivers handle the situation with the fare reinstitution significantly well, especially so since a significant number of Ddot passes did not work. Even though they were new, they stated they were expired when put through the fare box. Now that was a problem. They handled it. Now, one thing I would like to know, and I ask specifically for answers to these questions.
1 minute.
If we're charging full fares, I understand what you said, but still, for full fares, why aren't we getting full service? And I would also like to know how much of the Recovery Act funds will Ddot get out of that $800+ million that the city will receive? And how will you spend it? Now, if I can't get answers to these questions, I must assume that Ddot does not care about bus riders or the taxpaying public. In fact, I'd have to say you don't have their interests at heart. Thank you. May I get an answers?
If I could start, I did want to mention that some of the information that we had given, the 78% that we were operating at, I know it's a concern. And I understand that wanting to run at 100%, that's something that we strive for as an organization. Just to give you the structure of how that number operates, we did a reduction in service overall of about 10%. That's a scheduled amount of service. And then of that 10, 11% that we reduced the schedule in terms of actual scheduled hours, we're running about 90% of that performance. And that has a lot to do with, I'm sure that our my colleagues in operations can attest to, and the various things that go into operating during a pandemic, that is where full service isn't occurring. I mean, it's not a matter of us reducing service just based on a cost basis. These are just reflections of trying to put the right people power in the right place, and then the difficulties, I'm sure, of getting the people power in the right, like to have them operate on an everyday basis. That's where that number comes from. And I know it's not a great number, but that's where it does come from.
And I can chime in from an operational standpoint of view, Mr. Verse. I do understand your comments, and I can only speak to a couple of them. And I do know that the host did present a PowerPoint presentation explaining some of the financials prior to. I'm not sure if you were able to see that, but I'm sure we can get that to you. But as it relates to service, as Mr. Yamakura just spoke to, we are actually operating about 78%. And under the pandemic, there are some social distancing guidelines that poses some issue. So even if we ran 100%, each one of those coaches can still only run 20 passengers per vehicle, which is going to mean we're going to still have a measure of either overcrowding or what you may consider shortage of service. And so this pandemic has posed some major issues, and this is just not dealing with Ddot, that's industry-wide. Throughout the country, transit agencies are trying to make the adjustments, be as respectful to our passengers and as responsible financially as we possibly can be. But there are some obstacles that we have to overcome, and we are addressing them. We hear your concerns very loud, and as the health department and other experts make the decision to increase capacity, and as we work through getting our operators the vaccinations and get more operators back to work and keep everyone safe, we will get back to that 100% or close to possible to that 100% level as possible.
The third question.
Can you repeat the last question, Mr. Verse?
How much of the Recovery Act funds should Ddot be getting out of the 800 million plus that the city will receive? And it's a two-pronged question. How will that money be spent?
Oh, Mary Ann, go ahead.
Mr. Verse, if you're referring to the American Rescue Plan, the funds under that rescue plan have not been identified yet.
I'll leave it at that. We won't argue that point.
Hi, I can add to that. This is Deanna, the Grants and Planning Coordinator. The Recovery Act funds will be distributed to the RTA, and the RTA will allocate funding to our region. So they'll determine the amount that Ddot will receive, and also SMART for the Detroit metro area. So once that's determined, we will know the amount that Ddot will receive.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. The next hand up I see is, oh, should I? Okay. The next hand up I see is Ms. Stewart.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Rochella Stewart. I'm with Detroit People's Platform. I have some of the same issues that Larry had, but since you said that once you do get the rescue funds, please let us know what you're going to do with those funds. I want to commend you on having the monitors working down at the Rosa Parks Center with the departures and arrivals of the buses. That's a first in a long time. But my concerns at the Rosa Parks Center is that only the bathrooms and the cashier is open. Can't you put some kind of petitions on the seat in there so the people that really need to sit down and don't want to sit outside, maybe with some of the things going on outside the transit center, can have a seat? You can space them just like you would do if you was on the bus. Put a thing where nobody can sit in that seat. But I really would like to know, keep on making sure you got those sanitizers on the bus. I see sanitizer, but I didn't see any masks, and I was down there Monday. No mask on the bus. But you got sanitizer right there when you get on the bus. Seating should be down, so somebody that's going to sit handicapped, those two seats for where the wheelchairs or something go is sitting up instead of sitting down, so somebody needs to sit there. But please make sure you keep sanitizing the buses at the end of service. That's still really important, though, even though people are getting shots. There's a lot of people out here don't have shots, vaccinations. But I want to commend you on some of the things you're doing, but please get up to par on other things. And you all have a safe and blessed evening.
Real quick, this is Chief Brown. I'll respond to Ms. Stewart's concerns about the interior of Rosa Parks Transit Center. Unfortunately, Transit Center is a building, a public building, and we have to abide by the recommendations from the health department regarding opening and closing of public buildings especially. So it's not a matter of what we want to do, it's a matter of following the protocols and the rules and regs from not only the city, but the state.
Okay, could you make sure that maybe the change machine is at least working, so people that don't need to get to the cashier, the change and token machine is working?
All right, I think the comment was noted.
Okay. The next hand up I see is Mr. Tansley.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I had a similar question regarding the American Rescue Act and the funding collected for fares. So it's from what I read, it looks like that the city is getting $880 million, and that more than covers the budget loss of $410 million that the city lost in revenue last year. And so since it seems like that the RTA will be doing the allocation of funds, my first question is, what will Ddot be communicating to the RTA as far as for their budget priorities? And with the reintroduction of fares, which has that potential to collect millions over the next 6 to 12 months from the residents here, what sort of improvements will we be seeing in the next 6 to 12 months that will improve on-time arrivals, that will improve frequency? Will we see simple improvements like that revolve around bus priority for the system, like painted bus lanes or signal priority? What are we going to see there?
Do we have anyone that can address any of his comments tonight?
Deanna Donahoe from Grants, could you please address the comments?
Hi, yeah, sure. So the amount that you're referring to for the city, that's not, all of that will not go towards transit.
I understand that.
Right. And then from the total amount that is going to transit. Like I said before, the RTA will determine the amounts that are allocated for the transit agencies in our region. We don't know what the priorities
What is Ddot
FTA will outline for how you can use
RTA?
the funds. I'm sorry.
What are Ddot's priorities for telling the RT what they want, what you want, the Ddot, as far as for using the funds that they're receiving?
Well, we'll have to wait for more information from FTA on what's eligible to use the funds. Like for CARES and CRISA funds, those were Section 5307 FTA funds. And under that, there are guidelines on how you may use the fundings. And from that, FTA prioritize us using it towards operations, to continue service, continue paying our drivers, provide for a PPE for the buses, and as well as, drivers and passengers. So we'll have to wait for the guidance as well as the final amounts that come from both the federal government and also the RTA.
And then for fare collection, since that's going to be collecting several million over the course of the next year, and we have our budget, the city budget's already more than filled twice over. As far as for budget gaps, with fare collection, what sort of improvements are we going to see for that money being used? Are we going to take those millions collected with fare and use it to improve the service in the next 6 to 12 months?
As far as fare box recovery, last year we estimated to have lost $20 million in fares. Those dollars go towards a state of good repair for Ddot. So any fares that we do collect now that we're already deep into March will go towards the sustainability of our transit system for its future.
So from what I understand, with the
Mr. Tansley,
880 million,
your time is up.
Getting filled in. I mean, it's just our budget's filled. The gap has been filled, right? So what are we going to do with this new money?
And before they answer, this is your last comment. The time is up.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Considering that the budget gap had been more than twice filled over with this new American Rescue Act funding, what are we going to do with the incoming fares that are now being collected over the next 6 to 12 months? Are we improving service with that?
We will make every
additional
effort.
Funding?
We will make every effort to improve service over the next 6 months, 12 months, 12 years. We continually strive to improve service. We're looking towards different types of vehicle purchases to be more energy efficient. We will look towards all new technology. We will look towards Wi-Fi. We will look towards everything that can be purchased to make the service the premier service that Detroiters deserve.
Okay, the next hand up I see is Ms. Fidoa.
Hi, y'all. Thank you for listening today. I just wanted to actually reiterate what a couple of the previous callers have said. That we're getting a lot of money. This could be used as a catalyst to get us from sort of a lousy to fair transit system to a really good or great transit system. We need some real planning to make this happen. And I don't see what the plan is. It's just kind of, all over the place. It sounds like they're essentially the 78% reduction service, which I don't completely understand. Sounds like, what we've been sustaining for so many years because we can't hire enough drivers. It just sounds like another version of that. So some of these are continuing problems that don't have anything to do with COVID, and they're continuing. We're using COVID as an excuse. I'd be curious what our pullout rate is, what our on-time performance is. There's no way fare should be instated till we're at the meager 100% we were a year ago. There's no real plan. And when you say $27 million on preventative maintenance, I don't know what that means. That could be a lot of things it's used for. And I was promised at our last advisory commission meeting a breakdown, and I meant a detailed breakdown of how the, all these grant monies, COVID related grant monies were to be spent. I still don't have it. I'm going to have to do a FOIA on it. I appreciate you going over the top in your PowerPoint, but that really isn't sufficient. I really want to turn us into a wonderful, as you said, premier department, but we need a plan to do that. And we should use this opportunity we have right now to leverage it and create something instead of just kind of running around in circles and being stuck with, the crumbs of the city budget. So, thank you guys.
Hello, Ms. Fedwa, Marianne Walsh, Deputy Director of Administration. I do believe the Executive Director, Michael Oglesby, did respond to your email either last night or this morning. He did ask some clarifying questions to you. I'm not sure if you received that email yet, but we can certainly talk offline or further in this conversation if you like.
Any is fine. Yeah, you can kind of, I haven't seen it. Now, maybe it got lost somewhere. I'm going to double check. So who should I respond to later if I don't have it?
You can respond to either Michael directly, you have his email, or my email is the same as his, except for it's Walsh M.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
And what about the preventative maintenance numbers or anything, or is this something you'll explain through that?
The breakdown of the funds was sent to you. If there's anyone from maintenance here that wants to talk about the preventative maintenance, or perhaps Deanna, if you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Sure. So preventative maintenance covers, as was mentioned before, all the things that keep our system in a state of good repair. So that includes maintenance activities on our revenue and non-revenue fleet and facilities, as well as maintenance staff salaries, parts, equipment. We annually have about a 13 million cost for those things. And so with the CARES and the 27 million, we didn't know that CRISA or, additional funding will be coming. And so was, the reasoning behind allocating that much funding towards those things to cover essentially 2020 and 2021. So yeah, in all of the things that keep our system in a state of good repair, what is covered under preventative maintenance.
Okay, great. The next hand up I see is Renard. Renard, I'm getting a message you're using an older version of Zoom and you might have to call in. If it's possible, can you do that, please, and raise your hand and we'll make sure you have a chance to speak. After that, the next hand up I see is Ms. Owens.
Hello, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. I want to build on some of the previous comments with hopefully without being too repetitive. I am really excited about some of the information that's been shared, and I really do appreciate. I was also in the RTA meeting, and the director provided a good amount of information there. But I would build a little bit on what Ms. Fedwa said. It's great to see sort of these broad categories of where the funding went, but I think it would be really useful if there was a little bit more detail. Obviously, Ddot always has operating expenses and preventative maintenance expenses and surveillance expenses. How were the additional 64 million that was provided by CARES Act, how was that used compared to a previous year or 2 or 3 years ago? And I also appreciate some of the clarifications that were provided earlier during this meeting about what you called myths. I guess the concern that I continue to have is I still today are hearing complaints about riders being left at stops, that riders continually being passed up because, and now with doubling the amount of people available, I mean, spaces available, the capacity, that's the term. I guess I would want to see what is the long-term solution to ensure, well, hopefully not so long-term solution to ensure that the people of Detroit can get where they need to go and can consistently count on Ddot to get them there without delays and waits.
Hi, Megan, this is Marianne Walsh, Deputy Director. I was also on the RTA call. And I think you'll note that Mr. Oglesby is also stymied by the fact that his whole career was spent on trying to get as many people onto a bus as safely as possible. And now we're being told that only 50% of the bus is safe. So unless and until we all come out of this pandemic together, we can come out of this pandemic. That unless and until that happens, we cannot fill the bus to capacity. So right now, even with the 20 people, that's not the 40 people that we were able to put on a bus prior to the pandemic. But again, as our numbers go down and as we come around the corner, we will be back to full service and doing the job that we know how to do.
And I know you guys all very much want to be providing excellent service. So I hope this doesn't feel too much of criticism. We want you guys to succeed. I will say that there were transit agencies around the country that when COVID hit, they increased the amount of service that they were providing. They didn't cut back. They knew that we needed more space, so they increased it. I know that that hasn't been a possibility for Ddot, but as Patty was saying, let's look towards an even greater system moving forward. So thank you for the feedback. And I do look forward to more detail on how those COVID numbers are spent. And it's great if you send them to Patty. That would be great to have broader public information, more than just what's an individual requests.
Understood, and thank you.
Okay, great. The next hand up is Mr. Pawlowski.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Good. I just had a new headset. Just want to make sure. Good evening. Hope everyone is staying well, staying safe, and happy late St. Patty's Day to you guys. First thing I'd like to start off with is it's 4 days after charging fares, and I wanted to say thank you for charging them again. This is a start to normalcy, and we are heading in the right direction, and hopefully this will be over soon. In regards to the app, the bugs have been fixed. The last time I mentioned them at the last meeting, they've been fixed, and app works great. Haven't had problems with it. So thank you to Ricky on that. But two things for you guys tonight. So you guys got current schedules, the current schedules at the transit center right now. And at your guys' headquarters, when I walked in there, you guys got the old schedules in there. Is there a way you guys can update those schedules to the current ones you guys have at the transit center? Because that might be confusing to passengers. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I got a mechanical issue with one of the buses. I believe it's out of the Gilbert terminal. It was running 19 Fort bus number. I have the bus number on me, 1028. It was, the issue occurred on 3/5/21, 19 Fort. I believe it's based out of Gilbert terminal. Issue was the bike rack. I loaded my bike onto that bus, and when I loaded it, it wasn't straight. It was literally hanging down towards like the road. And when the bus was driving, how the driver was driving the bus, it was literally bouncing up and down. And I was just, I didn't know if the thing was gonna bust or anything, because it was super loose when I loaded it. And as soon as I got to the transit center and I took it off and put the bike rack back to where it was, the thing to hold the bike, the magnet fell off, magnet almost fell apart. And I was just like, oh my God. And then the other thing is the heat. There's some weird noises coming out of the heat when he turns on the heat.
Time.
Okay, just that.
Okay, we can come back. What you were referring to with the bike ride, did you make a formal complaint or fill out a form, call customer service with that one?
I didn't have the time, but that one, I figured I'd just wait and, because I know this would probably something that Mr. Luckett could probably take care of.
Okay. And just a reminder for everyone, we do ask you guys, do not wait when when you have a issue, please contact customer service as soon as possible so that we can properly investigate.
All right. I was super busy, so I haven't had the
No, I
chance
understand.
to.
I just figure it's a time for a friendly
Right.
reminder because we do hear complaints and then we don't, really know, but we can't really do anything unless it's formally filed. I do
Right.
know from the marketing aspect that we are working on updating or getting those schedules updated. I don't know if anyone else would like to elaborate on that or any other of his comments tonight.
I have more, but I can wait. It's just one more.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so just a comment related to the schedules down at 1301. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Of course, with the pandemic, the cashier's office was closed. We just opened that cashier's office up, and that may have been definitely a logist that we kind of oversighted, ensuring that the current current schedules are put in there. We can get that issue resolved immediately. So thank you for that acknowledgement.
And thank you for the shout out on the app itself, Mr. Pawlowski. That is a shared shout out, by the way, marketing, operations, Amy, our project manager, everybody that's been involved has been working really hard. And yeah, believe me, it takes up a lot of my, mind when it comes to that getting right. It definitely is important to make sure that gets right. So thank you for the shout out. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, great. The next hand up is Lisa Howard.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am a Life Detroit resident. I thank Ddot for your great service. I need to report a bus stop sign that needs to be removed because no bus route is on that street any longer. It's the corner of Charlevoix and Ellery. Also, will Ddot purchase buses again with side seats only that I remember from back in the 1990s? Thank you.
Thank you. I got that bus stop location, so I'll pass that on to our partners at DPW. That'll hopefully get that taken out pretty soon.
Thank you.
No problem. I heard what you said, but I'm not, what type of seats?
I remember back in the 1990s, they used to have buses set up with side seats all the way on the buses. And I was just wondering, with this virus pandemic at this time, is there a thought to return back to that for some buses?
So seats all facing sideways?
Yeah, where you would, you sit on the bus and you'd be facing right, in front of somebody else. It's like side seats all the way on the buses. This is like back in the 1990s. They had plastic seats back then.
Mr. Luckett is not here right now, but he's actually the one who works on ordering our buses and kind of figuring out the specs for them. So there is opportunity for us to look at different specs and particulars for the buses, but we do try to make sure, and again, this goes back to Mary Ann's point earlier, our focus until last year was sitting as many people as possible on the bus. And so the amount of seats, I would imagine, you can fit more people on the bus with the seats that we have now. But there is opportunity to explore different particulars on the buses. So I can pass that along to maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, great. The next hand up is a phone number ending in 133.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
We can.
All right, this is Renard Mashunski from the Detroit People's Platform Transit Justice Team. I'm also a lifelong bus rider and Detroiter as well too. We need clarity and transparency on what the Rescue Act funding is going to be used for, and what is DDOT's plan. There's a tentative number that is coming from the FTA that Detroit is going to get $138,385. Now, we were just told that we don't know how much we're going to be getting from the federal government on that. Even if you don't know what is coming in from the federal government, there should have already been a plan made in terms of how your service is going to be improved. Because if we're only going to get $135 million from DDOT for our annual funding, and that's not just from the city, that's from state and other sources, I don't think this is adding up in terms of improving service. I don't see how you can get to 100% service. And it doesn't really even feel like 78% service when you're only budgeting the department, you're only asking from the city council $135 million. So before the money is spent, we cannot have DDOT plan to spend millions of dollars on increased policing or thousands, whatever you want to say, and not dialogue with the community in terms of how DDOT plans to actually address safety on the bus. That doesn't just involve having armed police officers temporarily board the bus for like 3 bus stops and then deboard the bus, slowing down the bus route. So what is your plan for utilizing our federal American Rescue Plan Act dollars? Because that's our money that we pay to the federal government federally, and you're a steward of that money. So what is it going to be used? Is it going to be used for service, replacing and installing shelters, sanitation, and bus and maintenance, or is it going to be plugging budget holes? The PowerPoint is insufficient. When you look at a budget, there's a ledger. We know how to read them. Can you provide it for the public? Because I am not understanding how we're charging fares. We have CARES Act money and this new money, and the department seems not to have enough for its operation. Something's not adding up, and I ask that you be a little bit more transparent instead of, these PR answers that we've been getting for the past several years. We need real answers. We're taxpayers. We
That
work
is
in the
time.
city. Thank you.
Deanna Donahoe from Grants, could you please address those issues?
Sure. So the budget that was put up in the slide for the CARES and CRISA funds are the budgets that we submit to FTA in order to obligate and spend the funding. So as far as transparency, I guess so far what we have spent has come out of the operating assistance item. So the 36 million that is budgeted in that category is where most of our spending has come from to, as mentioned before, pay for driver salaries, the barriers that have been put on the buses, the sanitation, the masks, PPE that's being provided, those things, and also the cleaning of the buses. All of that so far has come out of the operating funding. There is still opportunity to plan for projects under those line items. It just has to fall within the categories of being eligible to spend the money for those things. So the projects can still be developed. There's still opportunity there, but those are just the line items that have been obligated under those categories.
I would like to also.
As far as the recovery funding, like I said, we don't have any information. The RTA has not allocated any funding to us from that that round of funding. I don't think as far as transit, you also have to remember when they say Detroit or even the state is getting so much amount of funding, those all go to different areas, for different reasons. There's housing funding, there's transit funding, there's general funding for the city overall. So all of the money that may have been mentioned is not coming to go for transit. And once we know the amount that we are getting as allocated by the RTA, and they will, they'll discuss it at their board meeting because it has to be approved at their board. An official letter will be signed and submitted to all agencies. That's also public information, which will have the amounts outlined on there that we are all receiving. And from there, Ddot will budget, as we have with the CARES and CRISA funds, for the eligible line items. And from there, that's where we create our projects and submit them to FTA.
This is
Chief Brown?
Chief Brown, Transit Police. I just want to add one other caveat. The executive director did request additional personnel with this during his budget presentation. So hopefully you will be seeing transit officers riding longer and more officers.
Thank you, Deanna, for the detailed response. I think we can go, we have one more.
Sorry about that. That are all the hands. Oops, I apologize. 1 second. All the hands I saw for the first round.
Okay.
If anybody else wants to make a comment.
Yeah, well, if there anyone who has not had a question or comment, you can raise your hand. If not, we will go ahead with our second round. And after that, we will end. So we will allow for those who ran out of time to make an additional comment, but we will maintain our 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, and Robert, you've patiently had your hand up, so why don't we start with you?
Okay, so getting back to the same bus number 1028 out of Gilbert Terminal, I believe. So the second thing wrong with that bus was I don't know if the air conditioning is if there's a problem with that because it's not summer yet, but I know there is a problem with the heat. When the bus driver was doing his route, the bus kept on going on, making these weird noises when the heat was blowing. I thought, in my opinion, I thought the bike rack was, going against, it was like, rubbing against the road or something, every time it bounced. But next thing you know, I thought it was the heat afterwards. So, but the heat on there wasn't even blowing when I was on there. It was just running, making noises, and it wasn't blowing anything that day. And that's the one thing wrong with the heat. And the bike rack was the major issue with that bus, especially when it's hanging almost towards the road, when it can almost fall apart because it's loose due to how old the bus is. So, but those are my concerns and questions for tonight. If you guys, I know Iobami reached out to me about 2 months ago over via email. If you guys want to, talk to me, get some more insight on any more suggestions, problems with the buses or the system in general, feel free to email me or call me via phone call, whichever. If you guys would like my phone number, I'll put it in the chat for you guys. We can talk one-on-one and get some more insight. Also, I'd like to thank Kristen for the 2-minute timer. Really helpful tonight. Very clever.
That's Iobami.
Oh, that's Iobami? All right. But if you want to reach out to me, Iobami, we can talk some more about this system and get my insight on some suggestions. I'm more than welcome to do it anytime, anywhere. Those are my comments for tonight, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and a great weekend as well. It's supposed to be 61 outside. And enjoy the nice weather with a Ddot bus ride on top of it.
Thank you, Robert. And I did receive your responses and I did forward them along as well. But as you know, we've been a little busy with fare resumption. So once things kind of quiet back around, we'll definitely be able to talk some more. But we do have everything that you sent so far. So we'll be able to go from there.
Thank you so much, Iobami.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Verse, I see you have your hand up again.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity again. And I have basically two questions. The first one is concerning the breakdown that was shown on how you budget. Where can I find the line by line? Where can I find the actual expenditures for each item and what those items are? That's the first question. The second question, we'll make that three questions or combine the last two. How can someone that's disabled or senior like me access or be able to apply for renewal or the initial reduced fare card? I mean, I can't do it on the Ddot app. And I do have a third question. And third question is, what is being done about the Ddot cards that are not working? Those are my three questions, and I would like answers if possible.
Mr. Verse, this is Mary Ann Walsh, Deputy Director of Administration. As far as applying for the reduced fares, you can go to 1301 Warren and fill out the application. It's being handled the same way it was pre-pandemic. We are aware of the tap cards that aren't working, and we are working with the vendor that supplied the cards to have a fix as soon as possible. You can board the bus with the card that is reading with a faulty expired message, and the drivers have been instructed to accept those cards that are behaving in a faulty manner. As far as your questions about the breakdown for the budget line items, I will defer to Deanna Donahoe.
Hi, sure. So as I mentioned before, under the operating assistance, that covers driver salaries, the protective barriers, and these are the detailed breakdowns under each one. Like for more detail, we would have to get a ledger or something more formal from our accounting department if that's what you all are looking for. But under the operating assistance, of which we have budgeted $36 million, that has covered the staffing. So, you know, the drivers, the cleaning crew, and also PPE, protective barriers. Under preventative maintenance, that goes to keeping our system in a state of good repair. So revenue and non-revenue fleet vehicles, any type of maintenance that needs to happen on those vehicles are covered under there. This also goes for facilities. So our bus terminal facilities, as well as bus shelters, all things to keep the system in a state of good repair. The security, it's a requirement under this federal funding source that we allocate 1% of the total funding towards security. This includes the camera systems that are on board the buses, or anything that goes to keep our system safe and secure. For metropolitan planning, that covers the planning staff at Ddot, which is also outlined in the Unified Work Program, which is a planning document that we have to submit to the regional MPO each year, and it outlines our planning efforts in major projects for the year. So the planning staff and the work that goes into doing planning for the department is covered under metropolitan planning. And so far, those are the categories that cover both CARES and CRISA. For CRISA, it's likely that most of that funding will go towards operations, because now that we've had a year in the pandemic and we have an idea of the additional costs that are needed to cover operations, it's looking like that most of that funding will go towards operating assistance, with the exception of the 1% security requirement.
Hey, I understand what you said, but that did not answer that question. It told me that someone would probably have to produce a ledger. It did not say that they would. What I asked was, how do I, as an individual, access that information?
We will take that request here at this meeting and get it back to accounting. And I do believe we have your contact information to share that with you
Yes,
afterwards.
you do. Okay, thank you. That completes what I had.
Really quickly, sorry to interrupt. Miss Lisa, I see that you're still on here. I tried to look for the cross street and I must have written it down wrong. Can you, if you have access to the chat, just type the intersection of the bus stop you were speaking about? I have Charlevoix, I just don't have the right cross street. Thanks.
I thought it was Ellery.
Ellery.
Thank you, guys. Teamwork.
And next hand up is Fidoa, if you want to speak again.
Yeah, hey, thanks for a second round. First of all, I did check and I did not receive the email, so we can work on that one. I sent an email to that effect. Second issue, I was wondering when we're going to be back to 100%. We've talked about reasons why, and the third thing is, why aren't we making our scheduled pullout these days? And I'm not talking about 100% pullout. I mean the pullout that's on the schedule. Thank you.
Mr. Mallett?
Yeah, I think I can take a stab at it. Am I muted? Let me make sure I'm not muted. Okay, yeah. So, good evening, Ms. Fedwa. I think I could take a slight stab at it. Basically, part of the pandemic does pose manpower issues. And so, as you may mention before, Ddot has systemically had manpower issues. And of course, the pandemic has not eased that. It actually intensified that a little bit worse. We have to keep our operators safe, keep our passengers safe. And so as we are in the efforts of everything between hiring additional drivers and getting our operators vaccinated, I think those are the two major goals that the department is looking at in reference to increasing the manpower to get back to that, close to that 100% as possible.
Okay, so when are we going to hit the 100%?
Well, so here's the thing. When the pandemic is over, so I'm not trying to be callous. The reality is, working in the public sector, a lot of our operators are greatly exposed to the virus. They are allowed to have the opportunity to be tested. If they are at high risk, they are self-quarantined. So when we get past this pandemic, I'm confident that our executive director, our goals, our efforts are going to yield a greater fruit. But right now, we have to get past this pandemic. And I hate to beat a dead horse or make it appear that we're given some type of just sly answer, but that's a reality that we are all living.
But they've already been vaccinated, so I don't understand. That's where I'm a little confused.
Not all of our drivers. We encourage all. It's not a mandatory vaccination. So the numbers are great. I don't have the numbers in front of me now to actually tell you how many has been vaccinated, but it's not a mandatory process at this point.
And Ms. Fedwa, just to add, I will double check with the administrative staff and the executive office. I was assured that the email was sent. It could be that there was a typographical error in the address, but as far as Mr. Oglesby is concerned, the email did go. So I will follow up with him to make sure he knows that it might be in his outbox or some technical issue occurred.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and last hand up is C is 133, which I believe is Renard. If you want to be our last comment of the night.
Okay, again, this is Renard. Thanks for another opportunity to speak. One, I just wanted to say that in delivering the service and turning on fares, there's been a scramble. I think there's a lot of concerns from senior citizens and disabled individuals that they don't know where to get their disabled or senior card so they can get the reduced fares. What are the hours of the Warren and also the Rosa Parks Transit Center for the ticket office? And I found myself one night not being able to access the Rosa Parks Transit Center for the restroom, and I had to use one of those porta johns, which were like very poor maintenance. But let me get back to the issue at hand here. What is being done for those group of bus riders? Because I'm concerned that they're going to be paying full fare and they have, the least money, for that. So, if someone on disability is getting like $700 some a month, like how are they going to get access to the reduced fares that they're legally entitled to? Have there been any changes to that? And I also wanted to echo, were the new schedules, have they been uploaded? Because the transit app is accurate at some points, but sometimes it's not. I've been passed up a couple of times on several different routes. On Grand River, no, not Grand River, I'm sorry. The Woodward, of course, and then the 7 sometimes are no-shows on 7 Mile. So, like, where can people get their reduced cards?
I think that was answered at 1301, the administrative bill in 1301.
Yeah.
And I also want to give you the hours, Rosa Parks Transit Center, as far as the cashier hours, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And at 1301 Warren, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Thank you.
That is no problem. Would anyone else available to address any other comments?
Also, on the Ddot app, I noticed there's no way to get the Ddot only apps. There's the reduced fare thing as well, but are there going to be more options on that Ddot app as well too? Because in my personal opinion, it's dangerous to collect fare with cash and coin. The virus can stay on those services for days. So what is being done about that?
We can take down your information and get back to you on that when we can coordinate with the vendor for those questions.
I can submit them to Ddot over email. I think I have Mickey's email information. So I would just, need an expansion of those varieties on the Ddot app. They only have like the 7-day, I think the 30-day, and the 24-hour pass, but there needs to be more options, especially if we're trying to keep riders and drivers safe.
Yeah, Renard, you should have my contact information.
Yes,
but the Ddot app was a regional effort. So the Ddot app and the Ddot passes are the Ddot and Smart collaborative fare options. So that's why there aren't Ddot only fare options in the app. That is a good suggestion though, as we are trying to get people, more options so they don't have to pay with cash. So I can definitely talk to the team who worked on that to see if there's any opportunity for us to include other pass options.
I yield the rest of my time so others may have the opportunity to speak. Thank you for taking my second question.
I believe that completes our second round of questions. Am I correct, Kristen?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I would like to use this time now with any final comments from our staff.
I have something.
Okay.
So this is not necessarily a Ddot announcement, but it is Ddot related. So the City of Detroit's DPW team is working on a transportation master plan, and it's called Streets for People. So you may have heard about it, but they are actively trying to reach and engage with Detroiters to get their input for this transportation plan. And so they have a few meetings coming up, and we'll be reaching out to various communities and various different outlets over the next few months, I'm sure, to continue the engagement. The background of this plan is just to have a strategic way to make changes and implement new things transportation related. So this includes parking, this includes public transit, pedestrian access. It includes bike lanes, anything you can think of that has to do with transportation. They want to hear from you. I mean, I do think it's really important that they are hearing from transit riders and getting the input of transit riders as how we utilize the streets, how we feel about the streets and our spaces. So in the chat, I'm going to post a link where you can find more information. And this does include a meeting they have coming up. It will be virtual on March 31st.
And Mickey, I just posted it, so it's in there.
Oh, great. Thanks.
No problem. So again, that link is available for anyone who wanted more information on that. Our public survey participation link is also in there. We encourage you to complete that as well. It'll also come up after the meeting if you don't use the link inside the chat. Anyone else before we conclude from staff? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. We hope that the information provided was helpful, and we encourage you to continue to provide your input. We do hear you, and we'll continue to give you the updates as they become available. Our next meeting is in April 15th, same time, same place. We'll see you then. Everyone continue to stay safe and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.